Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth, just fresh off Pundit Spunnet, and Jacob Christner. To say that we had an explosive show would be mildly stating the obvious.
Great show.
Yeah,
Loved
it
it.
really was. It always is. It always leads us off. And here we are on the second half of our Sideline Sports South Florida Tribune doubleheader. And along with Jacob Christner, we bring back Rick Curdy. Welcome back, Rick.
Thanks, Scott.
And we have Mrs. South Florida Tribune, Candy Ebling, who does it all. She goes out there and she takes pictures, she handles a website, and she puts a broadcast up. Without Candy, we'd be in deep trouble. Welcome back, Candy.
Thank you, Scott. Good to be here.
And last but not least, JB Ellis, my brother from another mother, JB the program. Welcome back, JB.
How you doing? What's going on?
Oh, what's going on? We got a lot going on here. So, to give you an overview, we're going to be talking coaches and a lot of coaches, that's for sure. So, and I mean, this show is sprinkled with coaches, among other things. So, in fact, I have to say it's really sprinkled with coaches. So, with that said, one of the hot topics is a high cost of college coaches. And I'll break down the three that stand out. Matt Rule, $9.25 million to go coach Nebraska via Carolina Panthers. Luke Fickell, I never saw this one coming. But as I said, Rule's worth 9.25. We're going to go from top to bottom salary-wise. Luke Fickell got $7.9 million for Wisconsin. He obviously left the University of Cincinnati. And Hugh wasn't freezed out of the coaching cycle either, because he's getting $6.5 million to go to Auburn. And he was actually getting $5 million at Liberty. So you got to wonder what the premium is for that Liberty job. Maybe that thing's a lot better than most people think, and they might land a bigger candidate than one would have thought before Freeze took over the job. So, you know what, Candy, since you're the new one here on this edition of the Sports Exchange, why don't you break down all the coaching hires, starting from Rule to Fickell to Freeze?
Well, Rule was successful before in the college rankings, not as successful when he went to the NFL, but they thought they'd bring him back as a college coach, and they figured to bring him back in, they were going to have to pay him. So they are paying him a pretty penny. Let's see, Fickell going to Wisconsin. I think a lot of us were surprised by that. A lot of us thought interim coach Jim Leonhard might get that job, but Jim Leonhard doesn't have the same experience. He's not necessarily known for recruiting because obviously he hasn't been a coach at that level. So a lot of people were surprised. I think Chris McIntosh wanted to put his own foot on the program. Instead of hiring from the Barry Alvarez tree, he decided to go out on his own, and he made a big splash because nobody really saw that hire going. And who was the last one we were talking about?
Hugh
How about
Freeze.
Hugh Freeze?
6.5 million. Even though that's a lot of money, let's not forget how much, like, Dabo Sweeney's making over 10 million a year. Nick Saban's over 10, Kirby Smart. So while these are still very good money, I mean 6.5 million, hey, you can pay me 5 million and I'd go to coach any of these. But there's still, college football is a big money game. It's not like it used to be.
Okay, Rick, break down the three hires.
Well, I predicted Matt Rule would get fired and go to Nebraska or Wisconsin. No big surprise. They paid him a lot of money. He actually turned the job down the first time, and then I guess they went back to him, and they upped it. So of course he's like, "Yeah, I'm coming." So I thought it was a good hire. He's done really well with Baylor and Temple, turned those programs around very quickly. I was surprised with Fickell. I really thought for sure Jim Leonhard would be there. He's one of the most defensive-minded coaches, best minds out there in all of college football. I was surprised, but like Candy said, I think he wanted to make a big splash. But I would not get too comfortable with Luke Fickell there. Eventually, he's going to go to his dream job, which is the alma mater of Ohio State, because that's where he's from. And with Hugh Freeze, I mean, I love seeing this guy. I watched his press conference. He screwed up. He made a mistake. We've all screwed up, and it's good to see him back. Great guy. I think he's going to be. I think he was the best hire, to be quite honest. I mean, he's gone to programs. turned them around. He beat Nick Saban twice when he was at Ole Miss. Not many coaches can say that. And Liberty was a nothing program. It's a small college, Christian college in Virginia. I didn't even know they had a football team. And I mean, they were ranked. I mean, so everywhere he goes, he turns them around. I have no doubt Auburn will get turned around. So I think Hugh Freeze, to me, was the best hire in all three of them.
Okay, well, I'll turn it over to Jacob.
I'll tell you this: the reason I knew about Liberty was because I went to Lee University. We're both the Flames. So,
There you go.
so that's the way I knew about them. But personally, to me, and you were bringing up this about Luke Fickell. It's the biggest thing is if you want to. You said you were thinking about Jim Leonhard because he's a defensive-minded coach, right, Rick?
Well, I say he's one of the most defensive-minded coaches out there.
Well, one of the biggest things about it is take one look at Iowa right now. Lived completely the last 2 years off of an amazing defense and the most pitiful offense we've ever seen in our life. It makes it look like Matt Nagy's coaching it. And it looks ridiculous. And the reason they're even winning games is because Kirk Ferentz can coach. But guess what? They lost themselves a chance at the Big Ten or the B1G title game because they have no offense. They cannot. There is no one now. After Kirk Ferentz is gone, they're going to have to go offense. Illinois is already getting a passing game. No one can just live off defense anymore. It's such a different world. Far as Hugh Freeze, nice, but I would have liked to have Cadillac Williams, Cadillac take it. I liked him. He understands the Auburn culture.
He's keeping them.
No, what I'm talking about is full coach, because he was the interim. But it's like I would have liked to have seen that, but Hugh Freeze, and as far as Matt Rule, it's like he didn't take any responsibility for Carolina, and Nebraska needs a lot more help than he can give them. So he's going to make excuses for that one also. So I'm not happy with that one bit.
All right, turn over to JB.
Listen, college football is a huge moneymaker. These coaches are paid ridiculous sums of money. If you prove you could win at a school like Liberty and you go, and you're making $5 million there, you go to a different school, I expect them to pay more. Is the prices that these guys are getting paid ridiculous? Yes. Does it make any sense in the world? No, but it's the market. The market bears the pricing. I don't think it's outrageous for what these guys have done. Imagine if they were actually good coaches, what they'd be getting paid. Look at what Nick Saban gets at Alabama. So it's hard to say that these guys aren't worth what the market bears. I think the market's just insane, though, for college coaching.
Well, the big thing, JB, real quickly, it's not the amount of money, it's the years, it's the knee jerk. Because think about Mel Tucker. I was saying last year that was a stupid contract because of 1 year. He's not a good coach, and now they're wondering what they can do with that. And then there's just coaches. Huh?
Well, the years are done purposely because of recruiting. No recruit's going to want to come to a school if you don't have a coach that's stable in their job. So you have to come up with this exorbitant amount of years so it looks like the coach is going to be there. But everyone knows that there's buyouts on both sides and everyone can get out of a contract. It's not as if that's not heard of.
So, JB, of these three particular hires, is there any one, or do you want to evaluate all three, or just limit it to one about which one you think is the one that will turn out best or worse or whatever?
So, honestly, I mean, to me, these are all retreads. None of these schools are going to be relevant. Nebraska's, when they become relevant again, I'll have a lot more gray hair if I have hair. Matt Rule was a horrible hire, but the problem is nobody has the ability to go outside the box. Everybody wants to copy each other, and they want the guy who's had a job, who's done the job. There's a lot of good coaches coming up the ranks. Sometimes you got to take a chance and you do something different. I don't. To me, there was a better way of going with all three of these hires. Not impressed.
All right, here's my interpretation of all three. Matt Rule, hired by Nebraska, desperation hire. They're desperate, and I've ever seen. They haven't been relevant since what? Bo Pelini. That's all I can say. And you know what? And we'll talk about the Frank. And what about Frank Solich? Goes to Ohio University and became an icon there, and obviously you know what happened there. So when you leave Nebraska, you don't do that badly when you leave there. Frank Solich is a class. So I think that was desperate. Luke Fickell's an interesting one to me. I don't think a lot of us saw this coming. I want to give you a story, though. When I was at a Detroit Sports Media Christmas party, and I was having lunch, Candy was there with me, I believe, for this one. And she got a chance to meet University of Michigan Sports Information Director Bruce Made. Bruce Made told us when we were eating lunch that to me, if he wasn't handling things at the University of Michigan, he'd go to Wisconsin and Madison. That's how much he thought highly of that joint. With that said, Luke Fickell, if you're going to leave Cincinnati, Wisconsin's a good place. And if Jim Leonard has any sense at all, he'll stay there, continue to build a little bit more, then find a right, solid job. And there's a lot of good ones. I'm even going to touch on an off-the-wall one a little bit later. And Hugh Freeze is a great bargain hire for a guy that won in the SEC. So I think they may not roll well. So, and I'll give you a name to watch out for in the coaching circles at some point. If not during this cycle, another one is a guy by the name of Josh Gaddis. I think he's a guy that you'll hear his name come up at some point, if not during this cycle. He was actually considered a candidate for the University of North Carolina and Charlotte before another Michigan guy ended up getting it. So Josh Gaddis is a name to look out for.
Well, here's another one to look out for. Trent Dilfer is now at UAB.
Don't steal my thunder. Okay. I don't need to hear that, but okay. You fall into the GMTA thing again, Jacob. That's probably you and I. Okay, Jacob. I didn't. By the way, I did not send you this topic sheet ahead of time, just because you think you could. Just because you know you can read my mind. Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. So there you go. All right. Well, geez. Now that you did that, I might as well go to that one. Thanks a lot. We can't tease our pick an audience, but Candy, before we do that, let everybody know how they can get a hold of us and reach us.
So you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Just hit the red subscribe button in the lower right. You'll be able to see all kinds of our great programming that we have on our station. You can go to Sideline Sports and see Scott. He was just on Pundit's Pundit. He's on Basket Bros. You can also... if you want to advertise, 954-304-4941. If you like to listen to us on audio, wherever you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, listen to us, South Florida Tribune.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, Jacob, you want to let the cat out of the bag, even though I didn't send you this stuff. So I'm going to just go right to it now.
You don't have to send me anything.
I don't have to because you read my mind all the time. I work with this guy twice a week, for crying out loud. Or actually, was it 3 times? We got 2 on your end,
so, yeah.
Right, and 1 on mine. So that said, all right, now that Mr. Jacob, and he'll be the first one I defer to on this one since he brought it up. Yeah, Trent Dilfer was named UAB head coach, and in his 4th season at Lipscomb Academy in Nashville, the team is 38-8 and plays in the state title game on Thursday before he assumes his duties as the UAB Blazers coach. Definitely an unbelievable hire by the Blazers. I mean, you can't put it any way. There's a guy that played in the NFL. I think a lot of times guys that play in the NFL at a high level, let alone the fact that he did win a Super Bowl, definitely have an edge in recruiting. I really do. And I think Trent Dilfer has proven. I had another guy that I had on a show a long time ago. Rick probably remembers. And Candy and I met him out in Illinois named Don Beebe. And Don Beebe obviously has done well. I'm not sure what level it is, one of the lower Division 2 or 3, whatever it may be. But on to Trent Dilfer. What else can you say? 4 years, 38-8, could be 39-8. All right. Take it away, Jacob. Talk about Trent. We certainly talked about it anyways.
Well, I can say this. It's like he was not a star quarterback, but to me, the non-stars are ones that make great coaches. And he's showing that Lipscomb. Now, you don't know what he reminds me of, though, like coming into college for the first time. He reminds me of the White Shadow, that show in the 70s with Ken Reeves. Yeah. The character Ken Reeves. He comes in, he's a Chicago Bull, hurts his knee, all of a sudden comes in, becomes a high school coach. And it's like goes, but it's like it's a different atmosphere, obviously. But it's just the idea. There's going to be people questioning, like, okay, he's done high school. They question when he went to high school, could he coach? Because he wasn't a star. But sometimes you are a better coach when you aren't a star. You had to do more. You had to do more. You have a better mind. It's like the stars usually don't, with the exception of Bird, the stars really don't make great coaches. So, I mean, Trent Dilfer, there's no question in my mind he had a mind for the game. So this is going to work. It was going to work out at Lipscomb, and I think it's going to work out at UAB.
Yeah, I mean that's a good hire. All right, Rick.
Jeff Saturday 2.0. I don't like
He
this
was
hire.
a coach, though, but Saturday has not been.
No, I don't like it. I'm sorry. We talked about the other three coaches. And we said Matt Rule's a terrible coach. At least he's got experience. I don't like it. You want to talk about desperation. They just needed a big name to recruit. I hope he does well. I don't see it happening. I just think of Jeff Saturday. That's my opinion.
All right, so you don't like the hire at UAB, huh, Rick?
No, I don't.
What about you, JB?
Listen, the guy did wonders where he coached before. Had a great record. I believe you said 38-8. He's an NFL player. He has a name, so he'll be able to recruit. UAB is a smaller school and a smaller conference. They need whatever help they can get. It's a great hire for a school like that.
Well, they're going to the American Athletic Conference, so they're taking a step up in class. So I wouldn't really sell that university short. I really wouldn't. They let football go away, and then the alumni wanted it, and the students wanted it. They brought it back, and Bill Clark, I think, who was in charge of the program, had to leave because of health reasons, but he got that program on track and have a new on campus stadium to take over for Legion Field. I think that program is definitely headed in the right sense. All right, Candy, some thoughts on the Trent Dilfer hire?
I think it's good. I think it's good for the game. I think Dilfer, they're actually allowing him to still coach in the Lipscomb State Championship game, which is Thursday, December 2nd, before he starts his UAB coaching duties. I think UAB is invested in their program, and they want to take their program to a different level, and I think this is one of their stepping stones to get them there. Dilfer, he's been obviously a good quarterback. He's proven. He's been an analyst on ESPN. He's kind of done the whole Saturday thing, like Rick said. I think he's going to bring some good recruits with him, which is what UAB, a smaller school, not a big name school, needs. I hope he does well. UAB play.
I'm going to ride on what Jacob said, okay? And Jacob, you are really on target with this one. He wasn't a superstar, okay? Anytime you have a guy that isn't a superstar, his ego levels off a little bit. So he's like one of the guys, but yet he knows what he's doing. And I think that's when you see a lot of those types of individuals. Not to say the stars can't do well, but I like my odds with them when they're a step down and they're students of the game, coaching, and so forth. So I'm with you. I like the hire myself with Trent Dilfer UAB. And they have a lot of things going in the right direction. Man, everybody keeps stealing all my names. This is crazy.
Plus, you probably love the White Shadow reference.
That wasn't bad either. All right, well, now we're going to go to a Saturday reference because Curdy started looking at my cotton picking notes. So everybody's doing it. I don't get it with you guys. That's why you guys are great. All right, you guys are now and a gal. All right, well, let's go back and have a little bit of fun with this Jeff Saturday hire, all right? And I'll give you a little bit of information on it. Can you believe that the Indianapolis coach, Jeff Saturday, became the first head coach with zero pro or college experience since? Okay, I want you guys to give me the year that you think it's been the last time this happened. And Candy, if you have it in your notes because you're researching, then stay out of this conversation.
No Googling.
No Googling.
Les Steckel 84?
Huh?
No, not Les Steckel, because that would have been.
I'm going to say
college.
the 60s.
No,
okay.
Les Steckel would have been college.
So give me a 60. Which one, JB?
68.
What about you, Jacob?
71.
What about you, Rick?
78.
Do I want to ask you, Candy?
No, I will plead we won't answer that one since
Yeah,
I
I
know
would
the
encourage you to do that because you have that little advantage in here that you can look at this stuff in the head. Hey, listen, no problem. But the answer is 1961 Norm Van Brocklin. That was
It
even
was
before.
close.
And he was
That
an
was
Atlanta
fun.
Falcons coach too.
What's that?
He was Atlanta Falcons coach too.
Norman Brocklin, interesting. He
Yeah,
won 2 Super Bowls, Eagles and Rams.
That's why. Hey, listen, Rick, you got a steady dose. Tell me the one thing that we brought up on yesterday's edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk that stood out that none of you or Jordan even knew about that I brought in.
Paul Wainer.
Well, that really wasn't where I was going with it, but what was? I'll give you 3 shots at it.
My mind's a blank right now.
Rob Thompson being the first Canadian manager
That's right.
in the World Series.
Yeah.
And how did Jordan Long respond? Was he pretty impressed with some of the things we had last night?
Oh yeah, he was like I mean, like I said, I barely found out he was Canadian a couple of days ago. So I mean, cool for Canada.
Yeah, well, Jordan Long, when we hit him with some of the topics we had yesterday, he was feeling pretty good about himself because he learned a whole lot on it.
He talks about big poison, little poison.
Jordan Long writes lots of notes, so he probably just wrote a note.
Well, let me tell you something. If you've ever read this guy's writing, Jordan Long, this guy is absolutely phenomenal. What?
Oh, he is. Oh, he's great. I joke about him being a huge note guy, but it's like that's what makes him the writer.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I've always been a firm believer. I mean, it's not to say broadcasters you don't always have to write. Obviously, Rick tried to write, and he found that his strength with us as we went along was more here. But the difference with Rick being a non-writer is he knows sports well, and that's how you're able to get by. Most people really have to write to be able to speak it well. Rick is one of those exceptions to the rule.
And I still don't like the Trent Dilfer hire.
Well, okay. Well, you already made that. I'm sure that you could think of a list of. I might have you write one thing. A story might be a requirement of what you don't like. Then again, Candy doesn't want to have to go. She has copy and paste, which another guy is going to learn. And if he doesn't do it, I'm going to tattoo it to his head. But I'll leave that name out there. It's none of you, so don't worry. So yeah, 1961, before I was born. Okay, but
you weren't 61 then?
No, I'll be 60 and 60 actually in about 30 days from now. We're getting out there. I am the senior elder statesman of this thing.
No, Norm Van Brocklin, he was known as the absolute red-ass grouch here in Atlanta when he was the coach here.
Was he really?
Oh, yeah. Absolute grouch. But that was the thing that the media at that time kind of loved it because he was entertaining. He was kind of like the Ditka of his day. Wasn't
he the first coach, I think, ever of the Minnesota Vikings?
Possibly. I'm not sure. But
I'm not sure. I don't have that. That's not material anyway. So what we're talking about, but 1961. So when you talk about Jeff Saturday having the last time this has happened, it just doesn't happen often. But evidently, Jim Irsay thought enough of him. And Saturday's kept his team competitive in the 2 losses that he had and then beat the Raiders.
Well, that clock manager was pitiful. But
no different than any other NFL coach that runs the game anyway. I mean, there are I would say there's about 15 guys that don't know how to run clock management.
He could be the next Nathaniel Hackett. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, Jeff. Well, that's a bad thing. But no, Jeff. The thing about Jeff Saturday is he's kind of my spirit animal because I've been somebody who's coached like volunteer before, and I want to coach it. I wouldn't be that guy who takes a team that's like 70 losses in a row and try to build something. So I kind of like the idea of Jeff Saturday having the guts to do this.
Yeah, you know what? He really does have the guts to take on some. He just left a cushy job over at ESPN as a commentator, but Jim, although he was a consultant with the Colts before he decided to take on this challenge, and that's what he did. So, all right. So Will Vogel's a little bit active in the chat room. Glad he can be a part of this thing. But here, take this and tell you what you think here. Okay, so read it, Candy.
Van Brocklin was strict. He smoked on sideline, and when his kicker on Viking missed kick, player hid on other sideline, and Van Brocklin couldn't find him at all until later.
All right. So anybody want to comment on that?
Man, that sounds like Van Brocklin. He was a grouch. He didn't want to
different era.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you get away
It was
with that.
before the NFL and all that. So
Yeah, if we want to think that we get away with kicking a kicker, ask Urban Meyer about what it's like to kick Josh Lambo. And
allegedly,
I mean,
allegedly.
does anyone smoke anymore? I mean, seriously.
Besides
who
you?
smokes cigarettes?
Besides you?
I don't smoke. I don't smoke. I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, I mean,
The last was Jim Leyland I saw, but I haven't seen anybody. Now it's like smoke-free stadiums and all that stuff. So I don't think they can do that anymore.
I mean, there's people's houses that are smoke-free, apartment buildings and stuff. It's pretty wild.
So, well, nevertheless, that's how rare this happens. And 1961, can you imagine that? When I found that out, I said, you know what, I'm going to put this on our shows. And I think with a wide range of individuals we have, this is definitely a perfect place to put it. So one more coach to talk about. And once again, Rick Curdy tipped his hand yesterday a little bit when he broke it during pre-production. Now I'm going to bring it up here. Don Mattingly is a bench coach of the Toronto Blue Jays. I will start on this one. Of all the managers I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a fair, Don Mattingly is not only one of my favorite managers, one of my favorite people. So, Candy, why don't you let everybody know how you call Dunedin or Dunedin, because it's about a 4-hour drive, 4.5 hours for me to get there, unless he makes his way to the East Coast. So what's your pronunciation of Dunedin or whatever you call it?
Dunedin.
Okay, Dunedin. Spring training home of the Toronto Blue Jays, by the way. So that's where Don Mattingly will be, at least during the spring. So with that said, great hire by the Blue Jays. And I think he replaced Casey Candell, who asserted the bench role.
I haven't heard that name in ages.
Yeah, old Expo switch hitter. Loved it.
Right, but Casey Candell went back to AAA Buffalo Bisons. Don Mattingly assumes that. And believe it or not, whether you know it, I was actually a finalist for the PR job back in 1987 before I landed in Gastonia, North Carolina for a year or so. But yeah, I was nearly the PR guy for the Buffalo Bisons. So with that said, Rick, what are your thoughts about Don Mattingly going north of the border?
Oh, I love it. You know, I'm glad he's back as a baseball lifer. I thought maybe he might take a year off, but no, he loves baseball. It's good to see him in Canada. And he's just warming up, getting ready to be the next Yankees head coach, because Aaron Boone, if he don't do nothing next year, he's gone. Don Mattingly will be the manager of the Yankees. So I love it.
Okay, we'll go the other Metropolitan New York resident, J.B. Ellis. Thoughts about Don Mattingly taking his act north of the border?
Good for him. Great for Toronto. Great pickup. You know, Mattingly is one of the best in the game. He was a great player. A really good manager. Toronto's got a great person to be their bench coach for years to come, until somebody else comes and snatches him away, which will hopefully be, you know, my team in the Bronx. But, you know, I think it's a great hire. I wish him all the best in the world. Second place will be a great place to finish. And the Dunedin Jays have probably one of the best hats in the minor leagues. I have it somewhere in my hat collection.
Well, let me tell you this before I take it over to Jacob and Candy. You want to see some real good sound with Don Mattingly? Subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Your host here has talked to Don many times, and we even have a nice clip on the front page of the South Florida Tribune, right, Candy?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so I got a lot of Don Mattingly sound and visuals on the South Florida Tribune. We have a lot of them that's another reason why you should subscribe, because I work with Don, and he's one of the greatest people as a person. And to me, he's a great manager. And I can tell you right now, the guy's more than just a great quote. When I got sick, you know, and I've been dealing with concussion issues all year, and I couldn't get out to a game until June because my head injuries and they're still bad. Well, because of concussions are nothing to write home about. So I was telling Don, because he, you know, he usually sees me at night. So he asked how I was feeling. First, it goes back to spring training. He asked how I was feeling. Well, I've been going through a lot of medical issues. But then when he saw me over at Lone Depot Park, and I told him about my concussions, he said, "Man, that's bad stuff. So I hope you feel better. I'll keep praying for you." Then he was telling me about one of his players and what it took for him to get around it and how long. He just said, "Whatever you do, Scott, just be patient. Don't be hard on yourself, because I know you will." I said, "Yeah, but it sucks not being able to come here and shoot the breeze and talk baseball with you." So, you know, you talk about a guy who cares about not only his players, but the media and cooperative. Don Mattingly is a one-of-a-kind individual. In fact, you know what? I wrote a story recently on Don Mattingly that's already on the South Florida Tribune. I'll put it on social media soon. So to me, Don, I'm glad you're back in baseball. And then I wasn't surprised you got back anyways. It's just like, all right, few months of honeydew list. I'm ready to go back. So he's going to Canada. I'm sure he'll have the Canadian national anthem memorized after a few plays. Anyway, so with that said, we'll turn it over to Jacob.
I love Don Mattingly as a manager. I think he's a tremendous baseball mind. But he's also, and by the way, you're bringing up the Yankees, JB. I would love him on the Cubs to take Ross's place. We go from no experience to all of it. But the biggest thing about it is it's complete proof of what I've been talking about the whole time. That it's like you need to get into an organization that works. That is going to work around. Miami Marlins, used to be Florida. Miami Marlins are not a good organization. You'll get fans, of course, they're knee-jerk and they're idiots. They're going to blame Mattingly. Mattingly is a great baseball mind. There's nothing he could do whatsoever about that organization. Nothing he could do about them losing. He couldn't get anything done. That's fine. But to me, it cost him a job, at least for a year or two, because he's bench coach right now. It cost him a managerial job because there's going to be people thinking that. And it's unfortunate. Do I like that he's a bench coach in Toronto? Absolutely. Would I love him in Chicago? You darn straight. Would JB love him in New York? Absolutely. I mean, he's got a great baseball mind. But to me, it's all the proof that I've been saying in the whole wide world. It's more than just the managers. I mean, they're the leader on the field. You need an organization, a front office that works with them. And they to me, they screwed him by not having a good organization.
Yeah, the reality is, and I work with that situation firsthand, he took that organization as far as he could and said that they just need a new voice. He told me that, you know what, we develop players here. It's hard to bring in big dollar figures when you're drawing anywhere between 8,000 and 15,000 a game on a good day, depending on what day of the week it is. So, all right, Candy, take it away.
So Don's a good guy. Don's, like everyone said, he's a baseball guy. He's a calming influence on young and yet veterans that might need that little oomph that they, he's been such a great hitter. He's got credibility. He's got experience. All those things that guys are looking for that might need that little edge. Don said this job piqued his interest from the minute he was contacted because he felt it was just right. The conversation was very open, honest, and he's seen the talent that they have there, and he thinks that there's a possibility that they can win, and he wants to be part of that. Let's face it, the Marlins, he was never going to go anywhere. They're not winning. They're not a winning club right now. Jeter left it. I mean, so many people have left it. It's a disorganized franchise right now is what I would call it. Whereas Toronto has everything going for it. And good for Don for staying in the game. He kind of thought he was going to have the year off, but he just didn't want to be away from it that long. And this interested him. And he thinks they can win, and he wants to be part of a winning culture.
There was no way he was going to take a year off. I knew that when I looked at his body language when we talked. That, actually the only reason I didn't go to the last game was I was doing our double header on Wednesday night with Sports Exchange and Pundits Money, but I got there the day before. So we talked in private, and we talked during the media availability, and I have it all on our YouTube channel. But yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, he'll manage again. He's only 61 years old. He's not much older than I am. Scary thought, right? But anyways, Don Mattingly will manage again, and I think the job in Toronto did perk his interest, but I believe with Rick, you know what? I think he ultimately does land with the Yankees at some point or another. He's a bench coach. Okay. So he's just going to stay around, hang in there, do what he's got to do. He'll be back. That's easy. All right. 2 other topics that are not coach related. Okay. But I'm glad we got them all out. These were interesting ones. We're going to go to soccer. I can't believe I'm talking about this sport 2 days
now
ago.
we're talking.
Yep.
Are we
I'm
really?
gonna take a nap.
Yeah, I know that he's trying to emulate me last night. I hope I
don't like soccer.
I may have
Boring.
listen, JB. I may have alienated 1 or 2
It's
people
football.
podcast when I said things about the sport that most soccer people that may have been following don't like. But in my opinion, I just said, you know what, it's a little bit boring to me. 0-0 games. And I used to like indoor soccer, but the reality of the situation is I can't handle scoreless games, and guys like to go out there and pass more, not shoot. But again, I think I really respect the athletes that play the sport. I really, truly do, because if you've ever played at these games here, these are the best conditioned athletes I have ever seen when you consider how wide that field is and the amount of training that goes to. You want to talk about ultimate athletes, soccer players are definitely, it's a nothing.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do nothing but run.
Well, they do. And I hate to tell you this, but back in the day in 1982, I was covering the Fort Lauderdale Strikers back in the day. And one of my best friends is a PR guy. We had a media versus the staff session out there. And, you know, I went down a few times. I got tripped up there, and, you know, they didn't have fouls in, and we were outclassed. And that same day, I had to go ahead and go down to, I believe it was the Miami area where St. Thomas University was, where the Dolphins were training, Biscayne College, and I had a chance to, I was covering the Miami Dolphins, but I had to go to the hospital because I was on crutches after suffering a sprained ankle. And that was when I was young. I hate to see what it would be like. But anyways, the soccer reference that we're going to make tonight regards Argentina. Their 36-game unbeaten streak is snapped by Saudi Arabia. They were one game away from tying the all-time record. Unbelievable. I mean, I don't know how many World Cups and how many years that is, but when you talk about unbelievable streaks, that Argentina streak of 36 games was truly remarkable. JB, you say you like the sport, so you can take the lead on this one.
So, I mean, that streak is amazing. You know, they didn't win the last World Cup, so it hasn't been that long of a streak. They do play some friendlies. They have qualifying and different things. But if you watch any of the World Cup or any of the European leagues, the good ones, you know, La Liga, which is the Spanish league, the Bundesliga in Germany, the Premier League, these guys are tough. They play physical. There's no padding. They're hitting their heads on, you know, each other. If you looked at the goal that the Captain America scored yesterday, Puzelnik, gave up his body to score that goal. No padding, no helmets, nothing to protect him, but he did it. And they do this 90 minutes plus stoppage time. You know, they're the greatest actors in the world, too. They go down if nobody touches them. You know, LeBron James watched a lot of soccer growing up. Now, LeBron watched soccer growing up. That's why he does that. But, you know, listen, they are great athletes. I mean, I don't say that they're the greatest athletes in the world. You know, I don't know what sport I would look at to say that, but these guys, they play a tough game. Until the last couple of years, I didn't have any respect for soccer either, Rick. I tell you, wake up early a couple of Saturday mornings, watch some games, you'll change your mind.
I'll be asleep. It's boring.
Well, you know, Candy and I covered Inter Miami.
0-0.
Wait, what's that?
0-0 against
The
USA
anticipation,
in
it's the
England.
anticipation of the goal.
Watch the German league. The German league, everybody scores. You'll enjoy it.
Well, I can tell you right now, Candy and I cover Inter Miami, and of course, recently Phil Neville just got his contract extended by Inter Miami by leading Inter Miami to the playoffs. But you know, I'll say this, and I'll turn it over to a couple more topics before we call her a night. But
I was going to say this: Inter Miami is also probably going to get messy, and they're also talking about the Saudi Arabia is trying to pay $200 million a year to Ronaldo.
Well,
they're aiming for that. So, and see, the thing is, bringing up Argentina, you're bringing up the 36-year, what was it, 36-year streak. They're now. I'm just saying, they're now in. They got in by, I think it was Argentina and Poland in their group. They just got out of that, Saudi Arabia and Mexico out. So it's like they continued their streak barely because they lost to Saudi Arabia and they barely made it.
Yeah,
but the 36-game win streak, Jacob. They lost to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it was broken by Saudi Arabia. Yeah, but they just made it. Thank you. They just made it.
They won their group
by the hair to chin.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I didn't want to get into this, but now you brought it up. If Lionel Messi makes his way to Inter Miami And I'm going to tell you, if you've ever seen a game at Dry Paint Stadium, aka Lockhart Stadium, Candy worked it. Okay, I know I'm probably bothering her because she's got some pretty good stuff there. That place has a great atmosphere to begin with. And they're supposed to move to Miami in a few years. I think at Pioneer Park. That place will be so loud. It'll be one of the hottest tickets in Southern Florida if they get messy for sure. And it's a great environment now. So, all right, Candy, go ahead. I know you're ready to get involved in this one, so go ahead.
No, it's okay. You already stole my thunder.
Everybody's still mine, so go ahead. You
Well,
can reinforce it.
I would say, Rick, I was probably on the same basis as you. Soccer has never been something that I've been very interested in. It wasn't a sport that I played, although I have siblings that played soccer. I never really watched a lot of them. I've never really gone to a lot of games. And then Scott and I went and covered Inter Miami this year. And I will tell you, their fans are more devoted than probably almost any of the other fans for any of the sports and teams that I have been to in the actual stadium. There is an electricity that is unmatched. I'd be honest with you. And I've been to Lambeau Field, which is, iconic. I've been to Wrigley Field, but the fans in soccer get way more into the game, win or lose. They're still in, watching, excited. Let's face it. It has, most of the time games we went to, it was pouring rain for part of the game, and they're still out there. They're still drawing. They're still yelling. There's still excitement in the stands. Is it the sport for me? No, but the fans love it that are into it. And like I said, they're fans like none other.
Well, I'll tell you, Jacob, if Messi makes his way to Fort Lauderdale, at least the beginning until they go to Miami, this will be one of the toughest tickets I've ever seen in this era.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
And the thing, Rick, about I can say this: I wasn't a big soccer fan myself. I probably got bigger as the time went. Probably 2012 World Cup. So the biggest thing, and JB can agree with me on this, I think we know that the Premier League, Bundesliga, let's see, La Liga, any of those are tough players and they score all the time. But the majority, when you see it's 0-0, a lot of it is anticipation. It's anticipation of the goal. There's a lot of excitement into that.
Let me crack at this.
Watch the Bundesliga, the German league. They score goals like.
I grew up watching soccer. My dad was a professional soccer player in Mexico, and he watched soccer every weekend. He wanted me to get into soccer. I just never got into it. I know the fans are passionate. I see it here in Charlotte. We got 2 pro teams. I get it. It's just not for me. I just think it's boring. I tried watching it. It's boring.
I've never been more disappointed in you, Rick.
Never. And it's called football. It's football, not soccer. It's football.
Well, I'll just leave it on one note because I have one more topic. We have parting shots. I want to make sure we get to that. I will tell you right now, it does struggle to keep my attention. I make no bones about it. But just because I say that doesn't mean I have a lack of respect for the sport at all. I think these guys are just unbelievable. And if I could go out there and run around a field like that with the skill that they exempt, more power to them. I really, and you know what? Lately, when we've covered the games, Candy will tell you, I've gone out there every single time, amazed at these guys. So I have the utmost respect for the sport as much as a lot of them. Does it struggle to keep my attention time? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, let's face it. In America, we're programmed with a lot of scoring and a lot of points, which is really what we are. Unfortunately, at this level, we don't see it as much. And aren't saying there aren't high-scoring games every now and then. And, as JB alluded, they may tend to be good actors once in a while, whether that word flopping comes into play and some of the Academy Awards that you see out in Hollywood, you could go on a soccer field near you. But I have so much respect for these athletes that they are unbelievable. I can't tell you how much I admire the sport and the guys that play in it. And we'll leave it at that. All right. Well, one more. I want to go to hockey, and then we're going to have our parting shots. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this because I'm sure y'all have some good parting shots, but I do want to mention that Phil Kessel became the first player in NHL history to play 1,000 consecutive games. Unbreakable, he's currently with the Vegas Golden Knights. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on that. But to me, if he's the first player ever to get 1,000 consecutive games, JB, is this record unbreakable?
You know, when you see these Iron Man streaks, it's just amazing to see. You know, I have a lot of credit for guys that could go out there night after night, game after game, you know, with travel, especially in hockey with all the banging and the hitting. It's not an easy thing to do to get to 1,000 games in a row. A lot of credit to them. It takes luck, conditioning, skill, you know, a lot of factors, and that's pretty amazing. And since we're talking about hockey, you know, prayers for Chris Letang in a stroke. I saw it reported today, so let's hope he's okay. He's out indefinitely.
Well, you got to go there. Might as well just say rest in peace, Borje Salming, too, after a courageous battle with ALS. Former Toronto Maple Leaf.
9 months worth.
Yeah, 9 months. Here's a guy that paved the way for Swedish hockey players to come over. I think one of the first ones I ever saw was a guy by the name of Tommy Bergman who played for the Red Wings. But yeah, prayers for Chris Letang. And yeah, but what Phil Kessel did is unbelievable. I know Keith Yandel got close and there was a few, but hey, when you hit the 1,000 mark, you're in a different spot. Jacob?
There's no way, not anymore. It's we are getting less and less and less and less Iron Man. I made a joke today on Twitter. They were talking about Ben Simmons missing the game because of calf strain or whatever. I says, "Oh, gee, the AC Green's consecutive game streak is safe." You know, I made that. I made that joke with it, just a little tongue in cheek, but it's less and less and less, and it's like this is the last sport that's really alive. I am saying, like I've said, and you heard me on Basket Bros. This is sports are a agent and lawyer deal now.
Right.
And it's like people when they're trying to get their players to get the majority of the money, they don't want them to get hurt. So it's like and NHL has the least amount of money overall as far as their value. So You're going to see these for now, but when the value goes up, you're going to see less of this. So no, congratulations to Phil Kessel. And you know, the 1,000 straight games, I think his beard got 950.
Okay. All right, Rick.
Amazing streak. I don't see it happening. I agree with Jacob. You know, and hockey is such a demanding sport. My goodness, I mean, they get beat up all the time, aches and pains. I mean, it's just such a demanding sport. So for anyone to do 1,000 games, I think in any sport, let alone hockey, is an amazing sport, and I don't see it ever being broken.
Breaking news.
Okay.
Rose Bowl has signed an agreement that allows college football playoff to expand to 12 teams in 24 and 25.
Good. Thank you very much. I know that they were the last holdout, so good for them. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, Katie, what's your take on Phil?
Hockey is such a demanding sport. I don't see anyone breaking that. You had Cal Ripken's, 2,632 consecutive games in baseball, and baseball is not nearly the same as hockey. I don't think anyone's going to break it. I think it's just too demanding of a game, and I think players nowadays aren't going for the longevity. They're going for shorter, higher, contracts, and won't play that long.
Yeah, I mean, the game is so much faster. They're playing a European-style brand anyways compared to when I grew up with the sport, JB, as well, when you had fights were all right and the physical play was unreal. There's no way to get to 1,000 is one thing, but this one, nobody's touching this one. So, well, and we'll leave it at that. All right, parting shots time. I know everybody has a lot of fun with this segment. Rick, give me a brief parting shot.
Well, we're talking about the college hires, and I talked about Hugh Freeze. And people were upset that he got the job because of what happened at Ole Miss. He made a mistake. I mean, my goodness. I mean, if people don't know, he was caught looking at pornographic sites and escort sites, and he resigned. And so he went to Liberty, turned them around. Now he's back at Auburn. We all like second chances, and I think this guy deserves a second chance. He messed up. I get it. But you know what? We have a statue for Ray Lewis, and he's accused of killing 2 people, okay? So, people want to give Kyrie Irving a pass. They want to give they want Kanye West a pass. All these other people get a pass, but Hugh Freeze deserves a second chance. I love what he did. I love that he won me over in his press conference, and he admitted he made a mistake, and I think he'll do great in Auburn. So I'm happy to see Hugh Freeze back in the SEC.
Okay, Jacob.
Let's see, and I'm going to bring this. JB will know what I'm saying here. Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. Let's see, and then then Tunisia today. All these teams, just these odd scores in World Cup, just these odd outcomes. Yeah, the knockout rounds are about normal, but just odd scores. We are now, and then we also hear Ronaldo going to Saudi Arabia, Messi possibly going to Inter Miami. This world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. This is not a thing where you don't know a country anymore. Anybody with a brain that can look up their thing for a few minutes knows that there's 54 countries in Africa. People can know where they're going. There's talent all over in every sport. And it's like, we as Americans, it's time to start educating ourselves. We got to quit being stupid. The world is getting smaller. The talent's is everywhere now. We don't need, there is no, and I'm saying this, we don't need to have a slogan like "Make America." And this isn't a political thing. I'm just saying the truth. We don't need to say "America, America, great again" because it's a world stage now. It is, the whole thing is a world stage, and we have to just live with it.
Candy.
Shame on you, Las Vegas Invitational Tournament that was held at the Mirage. I don't know if any of you heard, but there was a college basketball tournament that took place, and there was injuries that took place during the tournament. It took medical personnel over 40 minutes to respond to an injury that happened on the court during play because they didn't have anybody there on site during the tournament. There were no fans in stands because all they had were chairs around the court. Come on, Mirage, you can do better than that. You got the number 6 team in the country in the women's basketball there, and you can't do better than having medical personnel near the court and fans to see the game. Shame on you.
JB.
As everybody knows, I like to place a bet every now and then. Let me tell you my biggest pet peeve of this week. College basketball started free throws. They're called blanking free throws. The word free is in them. If you play basketball, you should be practicing that every day. There's no reason. There's nobody in your face. You're standing there. You're shooting you have 10 seconds to take your time and get a free throw. And these guys shoot free throws like as if it's the hardest shot in the world. It's absolutely disgusting that you have guys that can shoot three-pointers, but when the game is on the line and you need to hit a free throw, you can't hit it. It's unacceptable that the coaches and the players in the offseason have not fixed that. I look back to guys like Shaq who started this whole mess, when he shot some ridiculous percent when he used to take free throws. It's an absolute travesty that you call yourself a basketball player and you can't do the easiest thing in the world. There's no reason that from second grade on, when you play organized basketball, you shoot under 70% for free throws. If you do, you're not a basketball player. You're just an idiot on the court.
Okay, my parting shot. Local team called the Florida Panthers. Ever heard of them? No, I have. Covered them in 2020. But here's the thing. They won the President's Cup. They won the President's Cup trophy a year ago. They made a coaching change when they brought in Paul Maurice. They're currently standing at 5th place in the Atlantic Division, 10-9-5, 24 points. A lot of people thought they should have promoted the guy that led them there, Andrew Brunette, there, but now he's with the New Jersey Devils. I'm not going to sit here and question that decision because a lot of people thought the veteran guy was the right way to go. But where I am going to get critical of the Panthers is this, okay? You talk about the misuse of mismanagement of a salary camp. This is it. Alexander Barkov missed time due to non-COVID illness. The team played shorthanded and had 20 players on their roster due to salary cap constraints. This team played shorthanded against the Dallas Stars and the St. Louis Blues. You know what? The Florida Panthers may have a President's Cup trophy in the arena now, and they can never lose that. But you know what? To me, if this team is going to be taken seriously as a real legitimate club in the area, you can't win 1 or 2, 3 years again, go back to being irrelevant, because that's where they're headed right now. You know, I like I said, this organization is a toxic, dysfunctional organization. They've made a lot of moves. They're regressing in 1 year. They don't make national television. Tonight, the Detroit Red Wings took on the Buffalo Sabres. They made national television, and the Florida Panthers don't even get a sniff, or they don't get many. Are they for real, or are they not for real? You know, as much as I don't mind the Panthers, I won't lie to you that the Red Wings are in my heart, my blood. But that's not the point. I don't care what team that you are. You cannot mismanage a salary cap as bad as you have it and only dress 20 players. That is absolutely bad. Really is. With that said, okay, I'll let everybody know how you get a hold of us. Candy can do it for us, and then we'll call it a night. Go ahead, Candy.
Show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to advertise, 954-304-4941. If you have show ideas, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. But please, most importantly, subscribe to the South Florida YouTube channel so you can hear more shows just like this one.
Rick Curdy.
You can contact me on my website, www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there. Please sign it. It's to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. Facebook, I'm on the Charlotte MLB. I'm on the Charlotte Bats Baseball. Instagram at Charlotte Bats. Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball. And I'm on LinkedIn under Rick Curdy. And you can contact me on my website, my email address at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
All right, Jacob.
Sunday nights, the Basket Bros with you and Will and Jay and Jen, and then Monday nights during the season, NBA Carousel, Megan Price. Tuesday nights during the season, Confidential. We'll have a new time. We'll figure that out. Wednesday nights, doubleheader, Pundits Pundit and this. Thursday nights, I'm away from Sideline Sports, Yin and Yang with TJ Sampson. So, and then Friday nights, once in a while, whenever they call me and invite me, the Gauntlet.
JB.
JB_the program, Sideline Sports, Tuesday, 8:30 Eastern, DBTV, on demand or when we're on. Make sure you're watching. Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, J&J Sports Express, and here every week.
All right. Well, Candy said my piece. That's all I have to say. I will add one little minor nugget. If anybody wants to be a guest on our shows, all you have to do is email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. We always look forward to new faces up as well. So on behalf of Candy Ebling, Rick Curdy, Jacob Christer, and JB Ellis, my name is Scott Morgeroth, Motor City Manmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.